Hello, welcome to my presentation for EDN 329. My name is Tila and my student ID number is 321-95387. For this presentation, we are going to look at QuickSmart as an intervention program. Specifically, its supported pedagogy, its overview, design and outcomes, and we will define effective intervention and the principles associated with a second-tier intervention, such as QuickSmart. We will look at closing the gap and cognitive load theory, and we will also look at how QuickSmart is an appropriate intervention program for your school and how that aligns with the curriculum. I will then also just succinctly synthesize the research as well, just at the end there. So through copious amounts of research, we know that an early intervention is key in developing foundational knowledge in all areas of academia. The Dyslexic Spell Foundation recognises that in mathematics, it is vital for all students to develop number sense during their early years of schooling, and as this is the #1 predictor of mathematical achievement in primary school and beyond. So if a student misses this foundational knowledge and the key underpinnings of the rest of the curriculum, their outcomes are poor. We'll look at that in a bit more detail later on. There is a need for an intervention program to close the gap and provide another opportunity for students to gain the foundational knowledge that they missed in the later years, and this is the niche where QuickSmart is employed. QuickSmart is an intervention program specifically designed for later stage intervention between grades 4 and 9 with overwhelming quantifiable evidence that the gap can be closed and therefore making mathematical achievement possible for all students. QuickSmart is an evidence-based program that has been implemented in over 1,500 Australian schools since 2001, and so far more than 60,000 students have closed that gap for themselves, between themselves and average achieving students, thanks to QuickSmart. To close the gap, QuickSmart Numeracy Intervention Program focuses on understanding, accuracy and speed to recall basic number facts, performance of calculations, developing confidence in learners to actively participate in mathematics, encouraging comparable achievement to that of their direct peers. It also incorporates acquisition of appropriate mathematical language, developing a plethora of problem-solving skills and strategies, and developing that underpinning conceptual understanding. And all of these go towards supporting the primary aim of QuickSmart, which is for students to develop automaticity. Program design is scaffolds learning across 90 30-minute sessions that are ideally administered 3 times a week across 30 weeks. To begin, a pretest is administered to both students requiring intervention as well as a comparison group of average achieving students within that school. And this enables the program's assessment system, AUSCAS, or a cognitive aptitude assessment system, to give concrete data based on student responses in the area of speed and accuracy. And this links back to providing quantifiable evidence of student achievement across the program aims that we spoke about on the last slide. After a pretest, students are paired together and placed within the program depending on their individual needs and the lessons commence. Each lesson follows the same structure that we can see here. So first the pretest, and then every lesson will have a knowledge and understanding check to situate the learning, followed by a flashcard challenge, and the goal for all students here is to accurately answer 30 questions within 1 minute. Third, the students will complete a speed sheet of answers, and the goal here is to answer 80 questions within 2 minutes. And then next, the 2 students complete separate activities simultaneously. So one student will complete a focus number facts practice, which is an independent worksheet, whilst the other student completes the embedded AUSCAS assessment. That one is done online and goes directly towards the database of information used for reporting at the end of the program. Following this, the students come together to play a game related to the learning about numbers and to promote the enjoyment of maths, as that's a key foundational theory behind the program, is that to enjoy maths will lead to conquering maths. These steps happen in quick succession and they rely on explicit teacher direction to facilitate learning. And when the learning is facilitated in meaningful ways, the program outcomes are achievable for those students undertaking it. So the outcomes that QuickSmart is facilitating and helping to close that gap between students needing intervention and the average achieving students. So the following data comes from the QuickSmart 2019 annual report. I chose this report because it was unaffected by COVID, so it's a fairer test as to moving forward to the future. So some of the data leads to an effect size result of 0.6 to 0.94, and that translates into growth of 2 to 3 years within a year when compared to the gains made by average achieving students. An effect size of 0.3 represents the expected yearly average growth for non-QuickSmart students, so we can see a large growth there. And in terms of an individual student's growth, this improvement can be as high as a factor of 7, which is an incredible forward movement for a student in a single year. So, QuickSmart also reports substantial improvement on standardised test results within the first year of implementation, and this increases and sometimes doubles during the second year of implementation as schools and instructors become more experienced and used to the flow of QuickSmart. It also sees academic gains are maintained and enhanced within subsequent years as students become more confident using mathematical skills. Notably, Indigenous students' results mirrored those of non-Indigenous students. It encouraged lifelong learning skills and increased engagement within the classroom, which also had the flow-on effect of increased school attendance. Pause for a moment here to emphasise the importance of closing the gap again between the target students and the benchmark curriculum goals. So if the gap's not closed significantly for these at-risk students, there are negative consequences for their lifelong physical and emotional outcomes. And this means that in the future, those that cannot close their gap will not have the same opportunities and job prospects as those who progress. And this can have a flow-on effect to future generation as the cycle repeats. So intervention for these students is a crucial investment that will pay dividends for their future as well as the future of our society. As we've touched on, QuickSmart is a second-tier response to intervention program. Lynn Futches is a leading expert and research professor in the area of effective intervention. And in 2016, she published the 6 principles of effective second-tier interventions that you can see here. These principles may have been published in 2016, but that publication is the result of decades-long research that has been rigorously pursued across multiple contexts. So it is relevant to the QuickSmart program. It's relevant because QuickSmart satisfies all of these conditions in its implementation. All of these principles are present in every lesson, and we can see that this program in theory is highly effective. That the target students for QuickSmart are between grades 4 and 9 and whose achievement is below average, and it follows that a significant portion of these students are those with learning disabilities. There is substantial research that supports the notion that the constructivist instructional approaches typically seen in mainstream classrooms at those grade levels simply is of limited benefit to these at-risk students' needs. Following this, we also know that the processes and functioning of working memory have been identified as key underlying factors in all learning difficulties. Quote unquote, these limitations in working memory, closely related to deficiencies in executive processes such as memory and attention, are another cognitive characteristic of students with learning difficulties in mathematics, which present significant obstacles to success in mathematics learning and participation. So here we touch on the cognitive load theory that underpins the design of all interventions, including second tiers like QuickSmart. So cognitive load theory shows 3 different types of cognitive load that will influence the capacity of the working memory. The first is intrinsic cognitive load, and this is inherently difficult. It's the inherent difficulty of the learning. So we can reduce this load by carefully scaffolding learning to build off a solid foundation. And QuickSmart does this with their regular review of previous learning as part of the assessment portion of the lesson. And this repetition means that new information is more easily codified into the long-term memory. The second type of cognitive load is the extraneous cognitive load, and this encompasses all the external stimuli that can take up the processing power of the working memory. And QuickSmart reduces this extraneous load through explicit instruction by removing students from their loud and busy classrooms and taking them into a second quiet area. And the lessons are highly structured in their design with a sharp focal concept and regular practice. So all of this facilitates the third type of cognitive load, and that is the domain load. This is dedicated to taking in information and codifying it into the long-term memory. And the domain load can only be processed after intrinsic and extraneous loads their needs are met. So meaning that by reducing the first two loads, the learner can dedicate more processing power to accommodating and assimilating knowledge into existing schemas within the long-term memory. And this is one of the overarching goals of education, to put as much into that long-term memory as possible for children to retrieve in future circumstances. So the overall all-encompassing goal of the Australian curriculum is to prepare children for their adult lives to be active and engaged contributors to our society. So that's about making connections to the world through learning, and this applies in all fields, including mathematics. As we've mentioned, QuickSmart is a second-tier intervention program that provides a space for students to deeply engage with the foundation of understanding number in multiple ways. Using QuickSmart, there's a cohesion between assessment, curriculum content, and the school pedagogy, which strengthens staff pedagogy. And here we can see that student learning occurs when there is alignment between these three conditions, and students are able to make connections between their learning and their experience in the world. So QuickSmart supports this alignment and is a second chance for the older students to gain foundational understanding of maths in an authentic way. And the benefits of QuickSmart are numerous, from their small lesson sizes of 2 students per educator, the scaffolded learning, the explicit teaching strategies, highly focused lesson and learning activities that break the curriculum down into manageable parts all work towards this goal. To facilitate the learning, there are several stakeholders involved. However, the practicality of the program requires no more than the standard intervention program, and this makes QuickSmart a practical student is at the centre of the program. However, there are always others working in the background to support their learning, and the silent stakeholders can use the program's data to quantify achievement. In 80% of classrooms, QuickSmart is actually administered by specially trained education assistants, and as mentioned previously, a motivated and confident facilitator is regarded as one of the 6 key principles of effective second-tier intervention. And the ongoing training provided by QuickSmart supports this. Another benefit of QuickSmart is that students undertaking the program can still continue with mainstream mathematics simultaneously to the program, and this means that there is cohesion between classroom learning and the QuickSmart learning objectives. So students are really able to keep up with their peers' learning, and they don't feel as othered as they are in other intervention programs. But they are still gaining that intervention learning. So synthesising the research, we know that if we do not attempt to provide the opportunity for students to close the gap, they will not experience education to achieve their academic best. We know that there's a direct correlation between academic achievement and lifelong outcomes, and we know that we must cater for these students through various interventions. We know the principles attributed to successful second-tier interventions, and we know that QuickSmart supports all of these principles. And we also know that as an evidence-based intervention, QuickSmart is effective due to its quantifiable outcomes. We also know how children learn, and we know how best to teach the majority of neurotypical students, and we know an assortment of interventions for those minority learners who do require extra help. So it follows that effective intervention is key to give students that opportunity to learn. To conclude, these are the reasons why we need to intervene and give each of our students the opportunity to achieve academically. To do this, we should choose an appropriate intervention program to facilitate this. QuickSmart is one such program that is valuable to the outcomes of these minority students. So it is valuable to consider it in the implementation of your school curriculum. Thank you.